All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of season 5 of the Call It Anything podcast. Now, I am Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
All right, we are back here today discussing WWE Summerslam 2024. But before we get into that, sir, how have you been?
I've been all right. Just trying to beat the heat. And we're bringing back the kids, Jack. It's that time of year. The teachers were back yesterday, and this week we got a lot of work to do. I know you remember things like that.
Yeah, back to school is coming soon. It's already that time.
Yesterday, I got a chance to see Mr. Garabedian in person, and we talked for a while. I saw Santa Cruz over the summer. And big old shout out to all the Tajima folk, some of whom told me about their encounter with one Jack Castillo.
Yeah. Always, good to hear that everyone's doing well. And hope they're all properly preparing for the stress that is usually this time around.
Goodness. And how about you, Jack?
I've been doing all right for myself. Just, prepping each day as much as you can for the move. And just, working on stuff in my, usual life, working on stuff for the other channel as well. Just been, and also, trying to make some plans with friends, hang out as much as I can before we go.
That's good.
Yeah, I got something planned tomorrow with friends. Hopefully it all goes well.
Neat.
But we turn our attention to the now, which is SummerSlam 2024. Took place this past Saturday in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, it did.
As some people would point out, a bit of an odd location for an event called SummerSlam, but it's better than previous years, such as New York getting it for like 5 years straight or something like that.
What about LA getting it for 5 years before that in a row? How spoiled were we, Jack?
Yeah, and then I think Toronto got it 1 year, right?
Cleveland has summers too.
Yeah, they did show like a shot of I guess one of their lakes, I think it was, or beaches, one of those. I don't know what it was, but it looked pretty nice out there. And their summers, I don't know what the weather's like out there, but it's probably a bit more bearable than what we got out here.
I was at Boise, Idaho this weekend, Jack, visiting my brother. And so I watched it with him. I think this is the first wrestling event my brother watched, in a long while. So I'll be excited to share with you his observations as an outsider. But spoiler alert, Idaho was very hot. I think it was hot here. I think it was hot in Cleveland.
But getting into this event, very highly anticipated. Probably. I don't know. It depends. You could probably go either way between SummerSlam and the Rumble on what's the second biggest event for WWE in the year.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I definitely think if there was a case for SummerSlam, it's maybe so far removed from WrestleMania,
Yeah. But there was a lot of sort of big matches going into this, especially a lot of big title matches, a lot of big stories reaching their climax.
Yes, and instead of the usual 5-match card we've been getting, this one has 7.
Yeah, 7 matches on the card, and it was interesting to see the choices made. A lot of people are upset about certain things getting left off the card, which we've kind of become accustomed to ever since Triple H really started these shorter as far as matches per PLE. It's getting fewer matches, and a lot of the other matches that usually would have been on in previous years, electing to have them on the go home shows
or the Raw after, right? And It just makes SmackDown and Raw that much more must see, putting the high profile blow off matches on those TV shows in and around the PLE weekend.
Yeah. But let's get right into the show, sir. We start off with a match with a lot of, story and momentum behind it. Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan for the Women's World title.
The title and the heart of Dominic Mysterio. Not necessarily the custody of Dominic Mysterio, like the cruel match that a lot of us remember from 20 years ago.
Yeah. Admittedly, I have to admit, WWE's timing very much confused me because the day before I searched it up specifically because I knew I was like, they're doing that like super long pre-show. When is this event actually going to start? And when I searched it up, it said 8 p.m. Eastern. So imagine my shock at 5 o'clock when I tune in and find out 2 matches have already occurred by that point.
You tried 5 o'clock here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would... I had such a heck of a time trying to figure out what time it was going to start, and I was with my brother in Boise, and they're in Mountain Time. They're an hour ahead. So we just watched, I think what ended up being an hour of the pre-show just because I was so scared of missing anything.
Yeah, and, I didn't tune in ahead of time for the pre-show because, I got so used to previous events where it's like they tell you it starts at this time. You tune in, it's like, oh, here's an hour of the pre-show before the actual show. So I was like, 4 to 5 is probably the usual pre-show that we've seen with everyone. And the next thing you know, I find out 2 matches had already happened. So we had to go back and we were a bit behind at first because we had to come back and catch up with some of these matches.
Goodness gracious, I hate it.
But what'd you think of this match, sir?
It was a hard-hitting affair. This one had a ton of story behind it. And just to give you that outsider view from my brother, right? He reacted to a couple of things, and I think the biggest thing he reacted to was Rhea Ripley's shoulder. I was really sincerely surprised by how much Mike wondered out loud, why are they still doing this? I think it's out of her shoulder, her arm was dislocated. Her shoulder was dislocated. And Mike was like, I don't understand. Why are they still doing things?
Yeah. I liked a lot of the story as well, especially you saw a lot of the emotion come into play, especially for Rhea Ripley, having to maintain that, composure, in this match. That was interesting. I like how, for the eventual, post-match sequence that we got, that, they kind of played around with really making you think what side is Dominic going to be on, because there he is taking a suicide dive from Liv Morgan, to protect Rhea Ripley. But then there he is also preventing Rhea Ripley from using the chair, and you're wondering, is he preventing her from using that chair so she doesn't get disqualified, or because he's trying to keep Liv Morgan safe?
I thought that was a very good spot because he takes the chair away from Rhea. She's upset, and he yells loud enough for all of us to hear, you can't win the title like this, which is 100% true.
Yeah. And then, I don't know. Other than that, I pretty much liked a lot of what they were doing. Not too much to say about it, but I really liked a lot of the match.
Yeah, even though Rhea spends most of it with her arm hanging out of her shoulder, she does that spot that I love. I only have one gripe, but she runs her shoulder into the announcer table to pop it back in place. And I think the crowd reacts. I think it gets the reaction they intended it to get. But my gripe is that she does it twice. Why did she do the pop my shoulder back in and the turnbuckle inside the ring as well?
Yeah.
I mean, if you had everyone the first time, my brother was like, did she just pop her own shoulder back into place? He's 100% hook, line, and sinker. I don't know why he did it again in the ring. But, it plays a lot plays into a lot of the match. She's fighting from underneath for a lot of the match.
Yeah. And then the finish. I know we saw Liv Morgan hit the Oblivion, almost got a two, like, almost got the three, but it was only two. And then we saw
Yes.
Dominic distracting the ref, and that's when she hit the second Oblivion on the chair to win.
Where'd that chair come from, Jack? I thought Dom took it away.
Yeah, instead, no, he throws it back in there, which people were saying, or I think Michael Cole is the one that said like it was similar to the match with Becky.
Yeah, but that was a mistake. This was a mistake, right, Jack?
Yeah,
that was just dummy Dom.
Yeah, you think it's a mistake.
Being clumsy.
You think it's a mistake until the camera pans over to the entrance ramp where Dominic Mysterio is standing there side by side with Liv Morgan, and in front of Rhea Ripley, he kisses Liv Morgan.
That dirty what's it what? Gosh, blankety blank. Rey Mysterio is right all along. He's just the worst. That was incredible, Jack.
Yeah. Rhea Ripley really sells it, really sells the heartbreak on her face, the betrayal on her face.
Yeah.
Real good moment. One that people have been waiting for quite some time, really.
I've heard somebody very excitingly say that they can't wait for Rhea versus Liv again. But also, Jack, can you imagine Rhea versus Dom? It needs to happen.
That would be very interesting to see.
Oh my.
I wouldn't be surprised if they held off till the Netflix deal, where they may have, maybe looser restrictions.
Jack, when Raw, is it Raw and SmackDown?
I think so. Or it may just only be Raw, I don't know.
When one or both of those shows makes its way to Netflix, January 2025, I'm in. Hook, line, and sinker, like my brother in Boise.
Oh, man, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they make that change. But speaking of change, not to spoil too much, but moving on to our next match, we have Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker in a rematch from the last PLE Money in the Bank.
What'd you think of the match?
This one obviously was a bit short, and it really came off as I like the way someone put it, where they were like, this match really came off as like it was short because it was meant to demonstrate like Braun Breaker's growth from like the last match, where he was facing off against the veteran Sami Zayn, and he was going in pretty much like unprepared, whereas this time he felt more prepared to face off against Sami,
Do you think that's the case?
I saw it a bit, but really a part of me also felt like it was their way of like I guess combating the criticisms of the first match, where people felt like Braun lost too easily, where it was like, all right, well, let's just give him like a quick dominant win over Sami.
And I you'll have to correct me if what I heard was true about like sort of where this story goes next. This was my least favorite match of the card, Jack, just to give you the heads up about the rest of the card. And I think like if we were gonna go like with a short match, and I've heard that it was supposed to go 10, it went a little less than 10, but I think it should have been even shorter than it was. Spear him twice and beat him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you're going to be Goldberg, be Goldberg.
Yeah, if you're gonna make someone look dominant, make them look super dominant.
Yeah, like I don't know, like there was a beat or two where I'm just like, why are we still here?
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy this one too much. I just felt, even though like we kind of talked about it at the Money in the Bank one, even though a lot of people were obviously high on Breaker, it's like, I don't know, a match like this doesn't really help put to rest some of the like concerns you have with him.
Yeah. So I've heard like that it was announced on Raw. Braun Breaker wins his first Intercontinental Championship. By the way, his uncle and his dad are up in the rafters with other legends. Did you see them?
Yeah.
I forget when we see them, But like at some point in the night, we see up in the skybox is Rick, Scott, Kevin Nash, X Pac, DDP. Your who's who of people that WWE are okay with.
Yeah.
But I think the Steiners there were definitely there for Braun. But I think Sammy and he are gonna participate. I mean, are gonna do a 2 out of 3 falls match next.
Yeah, I saw that one.
A rematch, 2 out of 3 falls, and honestly, like I like that how that follows the story that they've told so far. This awkward match, this other awkward match. And you know what? Let's do 3 more awkward matches, but in the shorter space of time. I bet it's a lot more palatable.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do that, and then, people were wondering, who he was gonna challenge next before that was announced, and people were saying, him versus Ilya at Bash at Berlin, but like I was telling my dad, I was like, I don't really know how to feel about Ilya being like his first defense, Obviously, with Fame challenging now, it's not gonna be his first defense, but that feels weird to have as like one of his first challengers, even though, yeah, that's how Breaker got the Intercontinental shot, was by beating Ilya, but it's like, I don't know, to me it just feels weird to have like a match like that be one of your very like amongst the first title defenses,
I hear ya, and I'll bring that up again later, but I'm going to put a pin in it. Also, something I just refuse to ignore, like I don't like Braun Breaker's spear. On a night where we saw a couple of different moves used multiple times, like, I don't know. Braun Breaker just, he's maybe under the unfortunate circumstance of being in the time and era that he's in, There are other spears. Like, did he have the best spear of the night? Nope.
No, I feel you on that, yeah.
But congratulations, Braun Breaker.
Yeah, first title.
You know what? Congratulations, Sami Zayn. I loved his Instagram post about, he said on Instagram that this Intercontinental title reign probably meant more than most other title reigns he's celebrated, because it looked like this one he had the most to share with his like son, his wife, his family, going to Saudi Arabia, and sharing it there and defending it there. Like the last 3 months or so seems to have meant a lot to him.
Yeah. Me personally, I was a big fan of his. I really enjoyed this reign. I know a lot of people had other things to say about it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of the matches he had and the defenses he had, and I liked a lot of different stories, and I can understand why this one was especially special, because it's like the tag run with Owens last year. I mean, like, it was more about the moment at Mania than the actual reign, because they didn't even get that many defenses in, and then plus, when you look at his previous IC title reigns, it was like he didn't really do much with him, and plus it was during the pandemic where he couldn't really like travel and defend the way he did here.
Not only that, but he was a different character that like did a lot of running away and a lot of like slimy, heely, was it like he was avoiding confrontation rather than be like the fighter that he's been. So like I remember people during that Intercontinental reign going, "Oh, I just wish they'd let him fight."
Yeah, like I'll never forget. I'm wearing the shirt you mentioned. They booked him versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, and I think it only went like 9 minutes, with like 5 of it being running around and involving like Cesaro and Drew Gulak at the time. It was like nothing pretty much, and it was just like, boy, you'd wish they'd let him do more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can understand why this reign meant a lot to him. But moving on to our next match, we got another title on the line. The United States Championship is on the line as Logan Paul defends it against LA Knight.
I again remind you, I'm watching it with my brother in Boise, Idaho, who has not watched the wrestling program since before he moved out there 2 years ago. But rest assured, Jack, he not only knows who Logan Paul is, he doesn't like him.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that feel that way.
We also watched SmackDown the night before, so like, Mike really got a preview of the night's matches, but like was super quick to go, what's he doing here?
Yeah, no lie. Oh man, I think it's pretty obvious when it comes to this match who a lot of people were rooting for. I mean, people have been wanting, especially LA Knight, to win some type of title for the longest time.
Yeah, I don't remember when he kind of comes into the WWE, but he starts at NXT, has a run with the $1 million belt, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, it's been a long time coming. He's another guy that I'm sure would have maybe celebrated more singles title victories by now, if only because there's so many people.
yeah,
It's such a crowded scene in the mid card and at the top.
yeah. And like my dad likes to always note, as far as the more like current fan base that he's built, my dad always likes to note he hopped on the wagon first.
You mean in NXT or before
Yeah,
that?
in NXT.
Because like some folks remember Eli Drake. Yeah,
Yeah. But my dad
tell me.
likes to mention, like, when it comes to the newer crop, that, like, ever since he saw him down in NXT, he always, like, felt that he would, like, do good stuff. And then it was when he cut that promo before the War Games between 2.0 and 1.0 that my dad,
Yeah,
like, really enjoyed the promo and was like, this guy can be something.
that's so funny because in NXT when he moved and made his name LA Knight, I honestly thought, oh boy, oh gosh, how long is this gonna last?
Yeah.
It took some time for me to jump on the bandwagon that your dad was driving. Apparently,
Yeah, and the funny thing is that anytime like he brings that up, he also likes to mention that it's like he had just joined NXT that year, and yet he was fighting on 1.0 side rather than 2.0.
I do remember that being really like it was Tommaso Ciampa. I don't know if Gargano's in
Yeah, it
it.
was
Long time
Gargano.
NXT, like heart and soul. And then there's LA Knight, yeah. Who, like, honestly is just older than the other guys.
Yeah,
He's probably as old as Tommaso Ciampa, and that's why he was there. Yeah, guys, let's do it. It's like like a transfer student playing for the high school team, just like, yeah, live or die by this name.
yeah, he's the transfer student that joined senior and still somehow has the school spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to the main focus, sir, what do you think of the overall match?
Like I told my brother, who was really rooting against Logan Paul, I said, you know what the worst part about him is? He's very good.
Oh man, that is funny. Yeah, I was just rooting for LA Knight the whole time. Though I was just like, I
Mm-hmm.
want something new, especially because like I mean, fans, people hear it here between the two of us all the time, especially you, sir, about long title reigns. And not necessarily having an issue with long title reigns, but after a long title reign, you want to see some like new, sometimes quicker reigns at times. And it's like you got Logan Paul who's been holding on to this title and only has like 2, 3 defenses to his name.
Yeah. And also, he just had Braun Breaker win the Intercontinental title. What kind of night is this going to be, right? Is this LA Knight's moment?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, when you just saw a title change in the previous match, is it gonna happen here?
That's what was going through my mind, Jack. And Logan Paul gets a lot of offense in.
Yeah, he gets a lot of offense in. We see him hit that like crazy, like sort of like moonsault to the outside.
Uh-huh.
That was pretty impressive. Um, I'm trying to remember. There was something else on the outside, but I don't remember. I know LA Knight starts fighting a lot of Logan Paul's like people on the outside. I forget their name, but Michael Cole's always getting angry at him being there.
Yeah, he just pulls him over the guardrail and just starts beating him up to the delight of everyone in attendance, except for Cleveland's own Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, he slips Logan Paul a chain that has the brass knucks on the end of it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I know Logan Paul hits LA Knight with them. And then I believe he tries to go for the buckshot.
He hits him, but like in the mid move of like a back suplex from the outside. And so I think what the commentators say is he doesn't get like a full direct hit. It's on the side of his head. It was in mid motion. So I don't think LA Knight is as rocked as it would have been if it was like straight at his face.
Yeah. And so then, it's not enough to get the three, so Logan Paul tries to go for the buckshot, but is hit with the BFT, right? Blunt force trauma.
Blunt force trauma.
Yeah. Gives LA Knight the win. That is now the second title to change hand on the night.
And also, in his way up to beating Logan Paul, he also hit like an uncharacteristic elbow from the top rope. And I noticed that commentators say like that he's bringing new moves in his arsenal to beat Logan Paul. I think there was one other move too that he did that they were. He did this neck breaker that started off like with a fireman's carry. It looked like a Samoan drop, but he turned into a net breaker. I don't know if he does that a lot, but he did that on the table and then again inside. And I feel like there was one other move that he like rolled out. But they were like, yeah, he had to bust out some new material to put down the Maverick.
Yeah. And I always like when they do that, or like another one I like is like when they become like when they become champion, they like you see them introduce a lot of different moves to their arsenal to really like show them elevating their game.
But congratulations, LA Knight, a crowning moment, just like the one that happened in the last match. This one felt better executed and, maybe a more appropriately timed. Yeah.
Yeah. This was really welcomed, glad to see it. And hope to see a lot more from it, Just want to see a lot more better from especially the mid-card scene and more specifically the United States scene now. And I mean, at this point, we're always constantly saying it, but I don't think they're ever going to do it. But maybe find some way to differentiate it between the Intercontinental, find something to make it stand out, Especially when you have them on like the same card, you want people to really feel the difference between these two matches,
That's interesting. Anything come to mind right away as to how you might distinguish one from another?
I mean, it's kind of tough because, you put a lot of more workhorse into the IC title, but it's like, how would you change things up with the US title that wouldn't really, like, gimmick it,
Uh-huh. In my mind, everything's a gimmick. Everything turns like a time limit or a style.
Or like a stipulation, It's like everything gets turned that way.
Yeah.
I think that's always the most difficult part, especially when you have so many titles, is trying to figure out, how do we create these different, like, tiers between them, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see how this reign goes going forward,
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that, moving on to our next match, the WWE Women's Championship is on the line as Bayley defends against the Queen of the Ring winner, Nia Jax.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is the first of our tournament matches, because Gunther's going to challenge soon later. I think not the next match, but he'll be challenging later in the night. But we have our first one here with Nia Jax challenging Bayley. Sir, what were your thoughts?
It should be noted that when it comes to Bayley and Nia Jax, somewhere in the back, Tiffany Stratton is watching closely with her Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yeah, that is true. And I was definitely a bit worried that they might do it because as I was telling my dad, I was like, Mr. Solis and I just mentioned it. We want to see the women, hold it for longer than like a month at this point.
Not Bayley.
Bayley got so boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was so. How I said, let's hope LA Knight has like a great reign from here. Like the first thing that popped into my head was, some reigns start off strong, but then they just kind of fall down that slope. And it seems like that's what happened with Bayley. It was like her and Io had a great match at WrestleMania. It was a hot feud that cooled down because of their own booking mistakes to the point where it just fell kind of flat. And everything since then with Bayley, to me at least, and like a lot of people, it's like, it's not even just like the fact that we were more invested in like the chase. It's just like the quality of like everything that involved her just went straight like this. And she even had stuff to say about it too, where, she mentioned Damage Control. She was saying like, I felt like there was a bit more story for us to tell, and they were just like, all right, you're on two separate rosters now.
And then this feud with Nia, right? She's won the Queen of the Ring. She's going to challenge for the title, and Bailey seems like to be grounding her defense of the title in a past that they share, right? They there's an interesting stat when they come to the ring. I think they fought each other. I think it said 9 times, and Bailey's won 5 of them. I think. Like it's almost split right down the middle. But like in the weeks leading up to this match, Bailey's telling Nia, I'm not the same Bailey. I'm better and more confident. And, I bet you're the same Naya and you're reckless and you hurt people. And I listen to this podcast that go, so what? You know what I mean? Like, she's a wrestler and she hurts people. It's like what you're supposed to do. She's trying to make, like, I think a memeable moment, but at the expense of, like, logic or the suspension of disbelief. And, like, it's not hitting right.
Yeah, and then like they had like Nia kind of throw like similar sort of like confusing or like cheap insults at times, and like I don't watch the weekly shows, but I at least try and catch the highlights so I'm not completely out of the loop. And every time I was just watching something involving the build up to this match, I was just like, have they lost the plot? Like it just seems like they don't really know what to do. Like I don't know. It's funny. I don't want to like turn this into a whole, rant and separate section before getting into the match. But my dad and I had a conversation about like, because I was saying, every booker in wrestling kind of has like their faults to them. Like every booker kind of has things that they're not the strongest at. That they can improve, and it feels like ever since Triple H took over, it seems like some of the biggest things are either like the tag division or the women. Where it's like, sometimes he gets like a good feud going, like with Liv and Rhea, and other times you have Bailey and Nia Jax where it feels like they're just kind of left with scraps or left out to like really fend for themselves.
I think it's very funny that your two pain points are the women and the tag team. The tag team, what's it called?
Division.
Divisions. And then you think, what about the women tag team division? Oh, it's in the worst state. It's like 2 teams. And one of them, the champions, walk around going, we run this show. You're like, you don't even appear on the show.
Yeah. So, like, that was a conversation we were having. Like, I just wanted to bring it up here because, it's the same thing where it's like, you just, like, does he have his strong points? Does he have his peaks? Yes. But, like, with every booker, you got to offer criticism, and, like, this is kind of a low point at times, where it's like, on the SmackDown
I wonder, like, how much of it too, like, is Bailey? Nia has been on a roll.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, she's been on an absolute tear, and she like hams it up, and it's great, and she bullies Tiffany around, and that's great, and she's putting people away, and that's great. So I'm like rooting for Nia, right? Like, I wonder how much of all of the creative sort of frustrations is coming from Bailey, who, I like how you said, Jack, I don't want to go off on a rant. I will. On Mercedes Moné, I think they're two of a kind. I think they're cut from the same cloth. And I wouldn't put it past Bailey to be real, like, 90s Shawn Michaels about her on-screen character. You know what I mean? Yeah. Brother, can't look weak. But, like, what if you did? What if... Did you see Raw? Did you see the highlights of Raw?
Yeah, I saw a couple.
Did you see not Jonah, Bronson Reed?
Yeah, I saw that one.
What if we squash Bailey 6 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
Come on now. Seth is like, you're like, what's Seth gonna do? All I've wanted to feel for 4 months is what's Bailey gonna do?
Yeah,
I want to feel something for Bailey.
Yeah, and that seems to be like the biggest issue, especially with like the baby faces at times. Like they just don't know how to book them, especially as champions. But it's like, because like, you fall into that dilemma. It's like if you book them too weak as a champion, people question why or how they're champion. If you book them too strong, it's like, how do you make that work? But I feel like there is like a way to make it work, but these bookers just don't know how to make it work, or they're not looking in the right ways or at the right examples to you know.
Yeah.
And then it's like it's funny because I've seen people call into question like maybe why certain people didn't like certain matches, like especially the
Hmm.
next match. I saw a lot of people divided on that one, and
Ooh.
it's like I'm not expecting like Bailey to go out and have like some crazy like high paced match, or like some like super technical bout, but it's just like I don't know. Ever since she won that title, it just seems like things are very confusing. At least for me, when I'm watching the matches, where I'm just like, what's the dynamic here? What is the story match wise supposed to be happening?
So here we got a good old fashioned female David versus female Goliath. I don't know the female name for David. We have a Davida versus Goliath. And I'm watching it with my brother, and I tell him I think she hits a Bailey to belly. Maybe it's an awkward because Bailey to belly because Nia's so big. That I remember this thought I said out loud. I said, "Oh, that's her finisher." And I was like, "Oh, it's not. Her finisher's worse." And he goes, "Is it?" And she starts trying to hit the rosebud or the rose plant. I'm like, "It's so bad. Oh, I hate it. I hate her, and I hate this, and I hope Nia squashes her. Squash her, Nia."
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned earlier, Nia improving. I told my dad, I'm like, what a comeback she's had. Where it's like, especially when she showed up at the Rumble, and people were kind of
Yeah.
like iffy about it, and people
Oh yeah.
were like, oh goodness, like they basically just were like dreading her return, and now it's like she's made quite the comeback, quite the improvement. Where it's like, especially in the Queen of the Ring tournament, I was rooting for her. I was happy to see her win, and my dad and I were both like, I'll welcome the title change at SummerSlam.
Before the end of the match, it's Tiffy time, and she comes out. I think just to distract the referee,
Yeah,
just distract Bailey, and it works very well.
yeah. She gets taken down. What I think it was with the power bomb, right? It was
Ooh,
two power
yes.
bombs.
Oh, it was two power bombs, and they look so good.
Yeah. And then she hits the two annihilators. And the one thing I really liked from that spot was she hits the first one, and without even like skipping a beat, she gets right back up to hit the second one.
And then it yells a big primal yell at everyone in the audience. Crushes Bailey for the old 1, 2, 3, and the third consecutive title change of the night.
Yeah, pretty. Another big title change. Welcome Nia Jax winning, and you talk about title reigns. I'm interested. I'm real interested to see who's going to be challenging her.
Yeah.
I don't really know too much. I'm going to look it up right now, so apologize to the listeners if you hear my keyboard typing. But I want to look up currently right now who's on the SmackDown roster that could be potential challengers for her. Because again, I don't know too much.
As you
about
look
the
it up,
roster.
I'll tell you that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill unsuccessfully challenged for the women's tag team championships because the match was thrown out because of the interference of one Davenport. What's her first name? Blair
Right.
Davenport.
Yeah.
She came out to help Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. So I think that's still gonna go on, right? So all of them are tied up with the women's tag team division. So you have Naomi, who has run afoul of Blair Davenport as well. She may be busy. Who else?
You got Chelsea.
Chelsea and Piper. They're on SmackDown. Heck
Yeah.
yes. Let's go.
Yeah, I think
Book
that
it,
could be a good one.
cowards.
Yeah, that could be a good one. The interesting thing too is also I don't know who's like heel or face, so like I don't know
Yeah.
like what the matchups would be, but like I know Candice LeRae is on SmackDown, Mia Yim's on SmackDown, but I think she's
Yeah.
also tied in, or she might be tied in with Bailey. I think because she's been coming to Bailey's aid when it comes to Nia.
Yeah, Mia has already fought Nia and Tiffany. She beat Tiffany. She lost to Nia.
Hey, we need all the defenses we can get. Just run it back.
Run it back. Come on now.
Yeah, but I would welcome both Chelsea and Piper to challenge. I think that could be interesting matchups, both.
I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah. Also, just want to mention that is the benefit of having the time that we do now with the new recording process is that I can look that stuff up without having to worry too much about time.
Ooh.
But yeah, happy to see Nia win. Going to be interesting to see where this title reign goes from there. Hopefully a lot better than the previous one.
Agreed.
Both the previous reign and Nia's previous reign.
Right.
And
this is Nia's second time with I was going to say the title. This is a relatively new version of the title, but she's been champion before. I have high hopes for this one, Queen Nia.
Yeah, I look forward to the end of the year because I started last year. I started doing just little awards, just like tell people like who I thought, in my opinion, were like some of like the better like sort of things, like the tag team of the year, the women's wrestler of the year. I'm very interested to see how she fares against other women at the end of this year, because she's made quite the improvement this year and quite the comeback from her first run.
Mm-hmm.
But moving forward, and while on the topic of people's first run compared to their now run, we have finally the match that has been building since the Royal Rumble, really. CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre.
That's right. That is the next match with Seth freaking Rollins, in a very bedazzled referee shirt with no sleeves.
Yeah. Everyone was very interested to see what he was going to wear, how ridiculous it was going to be. And as my dad put it, he needs to stop stealing clothes out of Becky's closet.
That's hilarious.
Especially because
I believe his outfit was a custom number made by that guy that just divorced Mercedes Moné.
Oh, I didn't know that. All I can think of whenever Rollins, especially this past year, has come out in his ridiculous outfits is when Becky was doing it back in 2022, I think.
Yeah.
So, that's where my dad gets it as well, because he remembers those outfits too. But yeah, Seth Rollins is a special guest referee. Before this match started, my dad obviously made the joke, hey, why don't you go get your shirt, to show support for your guy. Obviously, he was referencing the CM Punk shirt. So I said, all right, I got you. I went, left the room, and I came back in my Drew McIntyre shirt that I had bought back in 2020.
Sweet.
And I showed it to my dad, and I was like, here's the shirt of the guy the shirt that I've had long before CM Punk even returned back to wrestling. The one I've been supporting ever since getting back into wrestling. With WrestleMania 36 with Drew. I was like, here's my guy. I didn't end up wearing the shirt though because it's black and, it's too hot to be wearing black right now.
So hot. It's so hot, and what a commitment to the gimmick you'd have to wear it in a weather like this.
Yeah, but I was excited for this one,
Oh, so excited.
Despite what the audience may think due to our monthly recording sessions, I do enjoy CM Punk's work. I am a fan of his work. It's just I have my little bits of criticism, and those might come out a bit more when we discuss this match.
I do too, but Jack, can you imagine? Less than a year ago, just under a year ago, our boy CM Punk was in England fighting at All In against Samoa Joe for AEW. Like, how quickly does time, come and go? How long that feels like? It feels like 1,000 years, but it was only 1 year that he was out there fighting for the other guys for the last time, as it would turn out.
Yeah, for the last time. And hey, as we mentioned at the time, what a way to go out.
What a way indeed, right?
Yeah, that match with Joe was pretty good. I think it ended up on your top 10 list.
It did. I regret nothing when I reflect on it and tell my brother about it. My brother's watching with me, and I told him about it as much as I could. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to open a Pandora's box of questions, but I go...
So it all goes back to 2014.
The best part, Jack, is I go, right before he went out there against Samoa Joe, he got in a spat with a guy. I go, I don't want to get into who it is because, Mike doesn't know anything about wrestling. And he goes, who did he get in a fight with? I go, you know what? Only because it's so funny, I'll tell you. I go, Jack Perry, and I literally like bait him, and he goes, "Who's Jack Perry?" I'm like, "Glad you asked, Mike. It's the son of Luke Perry."
Yeah, I was gonna say that fact probably sounds crazy to a non-wrestling fan, and I'm glad you told him it was a spat, because describing it as anything more than that, you're just setting people's expectations too high when they go look into the footage.
He got into a heated 2 out of 3 falls match in the back.
Oh man, but I'm glad you brought up that match, because I feel like maybe that's where I might draw comparisons as to maybe what I wanted more out of this match, in a sense. Because I mentioned, I'll bring it up here. I mentioned in the last one that people were, at least from what I was seeing, people were very kind of torn on how to feel about this match. And the one thing I hated was that someone automatically tried to go to the argument of, oh, you're just, you didn't like this match because it didn't have like 100 flips and 500 moves being done like back and forth. And it's like, to me, it's like, I'm not expecting that type of match out of Punk in 2024. I wasn't even expecting that type of match out of him when he returned back in 2021. But you mentioned the Joe match, and I'll mention another one, the Eddie Kingston match against at Full Gear in 2021. Those are the 2 matches I probably look towards as what I wanted more out of this one, and I hope that doesn't spoil my thoughts on this match too much. But it's just, it felt odd at times, at least for me. Like, I still enjoyed it, especially the story they were telling, but as far as match wise, I wanted a little bit more of what we saw at the beginning, because at the beginning of the match, as soon as that bell rings, there's no, oh, let's try and get a feel for each other, let's lock up and trade lockups. It was straight both men going at each other.
I agree, Jack. I was surprised, and then I wasn't surprised at how much story this match had, right? Like, was it more action or was it more like story beats? There's a lot of beats, and I shouldn't be surprised. This guy is as old as he is. It's his first singles match in a long time. The WWE will have you to believe it's been his first singles match in 10 years. We know where he was a year ago. But all that to say, right, like, I bet all those beats were built in to sort of protect him. Because, golly, Jack, all I want is for him to live to fight another day. But, like, the interactions with Drew, the interactions with Seth, like the interactions between Seth and Drew, like, they told an incredible story, a dramatic story, full of tension, at the expense of those big moves. But rest assured, like pain was dealt. And Drew, like, overpowers Punk in a very Samoa Joe-like manner.
Yeah. And, I mentioned it to my dad. I mentioned the thing about wanting more at the start. It's like, they started off very hot. Like, it reminded me, again, I bring up the Eddie Kingston match, where Eddie starts off the match literally, hitting him with the Huracan, and knocking him out to start the match. It was like the 2 of them started going at it. And, like, at least to me, it just felt like they hit a point. I forgot what point it was, where it was just like, it was like they were going at it, and then it was almost like they came to a complete stop, and, like, a part of me in my mind, I wasn't trying to be too mean, but a part of me was like, is he gassed already? Is that why we're slowing down here? Because there was like this awkward spot, I don't know if you caught it, where like it looked like he was trying to get out the ring, but he was like resting there almost, like in between the ropes, like in between like getting out. And like my dad and I just looked and were like, what is he doing? Is he selling? Is he getting out the ring? Like, it was like kind of slow with it. But like you said, I enjoyed a lot of the different story beats, the story they told, and there are some pretty hard-hitting moves. Like Drew was really all about the inflicting pain on him, where you got those like you got the what the story has been building up to, that these guys hate each other. But I don't know, as I told my dad, at times I felt a little let down because I just wanted maybe a bit more of that to sort of kind of balance those big story beats, but also still like having the match in a sense, because like at times I feel like they put the story over the match, which
100%, especially towards the end, the story is well and truly above everything else, right? Like, And it's funny because again, I'm surprised and then I'm not surprised that there are some like interactions between these characters. And I go, oh, CM Punk's just a big old nerd, isn't he? Like there's Michael Cole goes, oh, Shades of 97. I'm like, oh, they all just are doing like their best Bret Hart. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Bret
he's
Hart.
wearing the Bret Hart colors.
He sure is. Oh, they're just a bunch of. He's worse than MJF. He's just a big old nerd. What was I gonna say? Jack, did you see outside? Drew gets punked by he like big swings him into the announce table. I think that's straight out of All In against Joe.
Yeah. Although, got to give props to Joe or whoever set up that table that he went through it,
He sure did. Yeah,
but
sorry.
I like that callback, I saw someone, you're mentioning the whole thing about Bret Hart. I saw someone do the comparison where it was like, oh, Drew looks like Undertaker, CM Punk looks like Bret, and then Seth's supposed to be Shawn from that match. But I will say, just so people don't think I'm being a CM Punk hater, I did like, the interactions between him and Rollins at times, Like, I liked the way that, like, they were, like, playing into that.
Yeah.
I did like that Rollins was the one to, like, grab the bracelet so that, like, it added that story element of, like, like, as he was trying to explain, I'm just trying to, like, keep the match going. I'm trying to protect whatever this is, and, like, Punk is viewing it as him trying to play mind games with him. But I think a little bit they, like, overdid it maybe a little bit with the bracelet. Like, that's how my dad felt, too, at times, was, like, we understand the significance, It's his dog and his wife on that bracelet. Drew's been, Drew stole it. He's been rubbing it in his face and all that. It's a very, important piece. But, like, I don't know, though, especially towards the end, the way it took, like, more importance over anything, it was kind of just, like, I didn't know how to feel about it,
So like I think I can appreciate the story they told with the bracelet. I think my reservation about it, maybe it's one that you and your dad had, is like the bracelet's super important until it's not. Like he wasn't like gunning for the bracelet at the first opportunity he could. It's not like he's like grabbing his wrist and trying to grab the bracelet from the beginning of the match. No, it decides to be the most important thing in the world, Jack, at like the worst time. He has Drew in the Anaconda Vice and he's like, the bracelet, like he becomes like enamored with it. That's almost sort of counterintuitive to his character. And then again, he's got Drew. He's been on the he's being beaten down this whole match. If he's got the beginnings of an upper hand, it all stops because, hey, are you wearing that bracelet, Seth Rollins? What are you doing? Did you pick it up for me and are carrying it very carefully? Thank you for that. No. What are you up to, right? Like, it halts everything. And I love, like, I think Big E in the conversations after the show, he was saying the same thing. He was like, bro, it's not even your wife. Your wife's at home watching you. It's a bracelet.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, maybe it plays into CM Punk's character, but, like, it was given to him by a fan, which, obviously still is very, personal and important to him, but it's like, it wasn't like a gift from his wife or like a family member, You remember, like, back when, like, Drew was obsessed with the sword because it was, like, named after his late mother, I think it was.
I think even just it was it shared her name.
Yeah. So it's like, it wasn't even like something like that. It was just like, this is a bracelet a fan gave you, Like, I don't know, it seems kind of, like, it's an interesting way to go about a story to build something around it. But like you said, they kind of, like, weren't consistent with it, Which, again, kind of ties back to my thing about, like, the beginning portion of this match where it's like they really were gunning it for one another, and then it kind of just slowed down and they kind of did less of that, and it's like it kind of took away from that, like, we've been building to this point, like it's the breaking point. They want to go at each other.
And I agree with you that I wish there was more on Punk's offense, right? Like, it was heavily Drew. So if we can cut to the finish, here's why I forgive the match for these little tiny things that we've been bringing up. CM Punk's had it with Seth. Like, if he's arguing about this little thing, I'm okay with that because they hate each other so much. You know what I mean? Like, they came in with all this and it's boiling over. GTS on Seth. Walks into a Claymore, right?
Yeah.
Walks into a big old Claymore. And does he pin him?
Well, I think he hits him with a low blow first and then a
Oh,
claymore.
he does. Yes, he does. And like keeps his foot there. Oh, and that's good. I was joking around with my brother. I was like, you know what I always wrestle with? How and why do you not kick out after a low blow? Like, is that enough to put a guy away for 3 seconds? You know what I mean? And I go, the only way I've rationalized it is the pain is so severe that you don't even hear maybe the count. You know, like you're
Yeah.
so focused on like the pain that the rest of your body, like you have like this paralysis, and you're just sort of like, what happened, right? But no, Drew's gonna put him away definitively. Slow him down with the low blow, hit him with the Claymore, and then Seth gives him that dirty WrestleMania 19 Booker T slow count. Yes. But Jack, why am I ready to forgive all of that weird, over-the-top, excessive storytelling with the bracelet? Because 1, the right guy won. 2, definitively. 3, and he took the bracelet back.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. And I will say, despite rooting for Drew all this time, I told my dad, I wish he didn't win here. And my dad was like, what? Why? You've been going for Drew. I go, because they're going to have a rematch, and Punk's going to win that one and probably definitively win the feud.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. Drew has been like long overdue for a big win, right? He lost that Clash at the Castle. He wins, but then loses at WrestleMania, right?
You lose at the
Like,
Rumble and the Chamber, I think.
right? And so, like, this was a very clear and definitive win for the Scottish psychopath. So I was excited.
Yeah. I was glad to see him get the win. You know, despite its various, peaks and valleys, I would say. It's like I still very much enjoyed, like, the peaks definitely outweigh the valleys for me, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and the valleys are to be, attributed to, they're all a bunch of nerds. And maybe holding back for the matches that followed. I think, this was like a proof of concept. Punk can hang, you know what I mean? He feels okay. They weren't going to do anything crazy, like a Hell in a Cell from the get-go.
Yeah.
Keep that fantasy booking out of here, you Mark.
Gonna be interesting to see where this feud goes, though. Definitely, probably. I think they skipped Bash at Berlin and saved the next match for Bad Blood, obviously. But I'm interested to see how they prolong it that much.
Yeah, Seth is otherwise occupied in a feud with Bronson Reed. My buddy goes, how are they going to relegate Seth Rollins to the mid-card? I went, oh, no. This is Bronson Reed finally getting his time to shine. He's being brought up. I said, This guy, I was trying to tell him who Bronson Reed was. I was like, this guy beat Okada.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, if you've been following this podcast since the start, you all know I am a big Bronson Reed fan.
Cute Jonah fan.
Yeah, I got a couple of his shirts, been following him for a while. We've talked about him since NXT. I'm happy to see it. I saw a lot. I was so happy to see the reception he got from people yesterday, especially so many people being like, how do you make someone care about, someone that maybe is new or hasn't been getting too much time to shine? You give them something like this. And the best thing I saw that someone said was, it was like, while other people, the nerds in the wrestling business, are always complaining about lack of TV time, here's Bronson Reed getting some TV time, and he's utilizing it the best he can.
Here's Bronson Reed getting 120 seconds of TV time, and we're going to talk about it for a while, Jack. I told my buddy who was feeling it for Seth, I went, after 1 tsunami, I'm excited. After 3 tsunamis, I'm impressed. After 5, I'm online buying a shirt. I need you to all understand how far they took it and how grateful I am that they did.
Yeah, but not only that, when you see him going for the 5th one, and when he lands it and the camera pans and you see these spots on the mat, and you're thinking to yourself, is Seth coughing up blood? Like, is that how much they're selling this? You're just like, here's all my money. I'm invested in this right away.
It's so good. I'm excited. I'm excited for Raw to be on Netflix too.
Yeah, I mean, you already know if this is on Netflix, that what's it called? You would have probably seen a bit more, maybe. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm expecting with Netflix is that like they're not gonna go over the top with it, but you're gonna see like the reintroduction of some things.
Even if this doesn't propel him to the main event scene, let's get Braun Breaker against Bronson Reed for the Intercontinental title that Reed should have won in May. And let's see him try to spear Bronson Reed, bounce so far and so high off his massiveness. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm doing that meme with the debit card on the desk, like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just super interested to see where they go from here. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting, especially have pair him up with Seth. I think that's a good way to pivot Seth from this feud.
100%. That was my concern. Is like, how do you prolong the Drew and Punk stuff, like without muddying the water with Seth? Well, Seth is otherwise inclined.
Yeah, and I know my dad appreciates it because he didn't really like Seth's inclusion too much, just because like he felt distracting to the main story.
I agree.
So, this is a good way to get him out of it.
Oh yes.
And
2 more matches to go, Jack. And how much time do we have left on this recording?
Infinite.
Wow.
Or I don't know Infinite. Funny enough, so I have another recording program on my computer that I use for the other channel.
Yeah.
And this past Tuesday was the MLB trade deadline. And so I proposed this idea to my dad, and of course my dad being the biggest supporter of that channel was like, do it, I want to hear it. I did essentially live reactions where like I recorded the regular episode for the Philly talk that week, and like I just talked about like what the Phillies were, post All-Star break, and I was kind of talking about my expectations for the deadline, and then at the end I was like, all right, well, here's what I have planned. I'm gonna leave this thing recording. Anytime a trade happens, I'm gonna come on and record, or like not record, but like give my live reaction so I can catch my live reaction. I'll just be doing stuff in the background and make sure to write down the timestamp. And so I was like, I don't know how long this thing can record for, but I'm just gonna keep going and get my live reactions. A trade did not happen for 3 hours, and the only reason I noticed was because my thing stopped recording at the 3-hour mark. And I told my dad about it. I was like 3 hours that recording went on and not a single trade. So I had to start a new one, and then that's when the trade started happening. I got my live reactions, clipped them together, sectioned it off so that people would know like where the reactions were and to what trade. But so like that's what I did, and that's when I learned. I'm like, okay, so if I ever need to know, my limit for recording on here is 3 hours. But for this one, I have no clue. All I know is we go our usual time of 2 episodes combined.
I got you. What a funny experiment, and what a funny, a funny conundrum. How far is Infinite when it comes to this media and this app?
Yeah, and especially when it comes to like, not only how long the recording is, but how much space it takes up. Because I forgot how much the last episode was, and it was proving quite difficult to import, but I found a way to import it.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
But moving forward with our next match, our second tournament winner challenging for a world title. It is the World Heavyweight Championship on the line as Damian Priest defends against Gunther.
Correct.
And similar to Nia, we've kind of seen people have a turnaround with not only Damian... Well, people have had a turnaround with Damian Priest ever since the Judgment Day stuff was introduced. But when it came to his title reign, started off a bit odd. People, they had that little documentary about him, and, they had that section where, people were saying, like, oh, Damian Priest is probably going to be a failed Money in the Bank cash-in. Well, he successfully cashes in on the biggest stage. Has an iffy title defense, first title defense with Jey Uso, people not really feeling it. And then has a bit of turnaround when it came to the Drew McIntyre match. And then, what was the one at Money in the Bank? Did he have one at Money in the Bank? I can't remember.
Uh, it's against Seth with the botch pin.
Yeah,
And
there we go.
if he beats Seth, he can never challenge again. And he goes, you know what, man, you can challenge whenever you want because I'm a babyface now.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's kind of been a turnaround, ever since the match against Drew, and then Seth. People pretty much like that, aside from what happened at the end. So
He's he's like borderline Bailey, right? Like once he gets the title, he's like a worse character for it, or his character suffers. But the only reason why he's been able to stay afloat is he has all the Judgment Day drama sort of attached to him. Like he's a more well-rounded character that has a lot more going on. The defenses have been like he's batting a low percentage of like high quality or entertaining defenses, but some of it's out of his control entirely. I would blame that Jay match on Jay. Frankly, you're like, you gave a championship match to a guy who has two moves,
Yeah.
like, and then the Drew match would have been a whole lot better if it wasn't for that top rope snafu.
Yeah, you know what comparison I'd almost give it, but I know people are gonna like hate me for saying it. It kind of, at least personally, how I feel about Swerve ever since he became champion, or more so when he started this ascent to wanting the championship, where it's like, if it wasn't for Swerve's charisma and ability in the ring, to have, really good matches, I don't know how I'd feel about this reign, mainly because, it's something I voiced with you, especially where it's like, I just felt like he's lost some of the things that made him interesting when he was a heel,
Yeah.
And like we haven't really gotten to see a lot of that because of how over he is with the fans, and so it's like.
And I'll tell you what, I think the Judgment Day drama like gives his character a lot more to interact with, but also I think it weighed him down because since he won the title, is he a face or is he a heel? Well, kind of depends on how you define the Judgment Day, which is a big old mixed bag of stuff that's only been made clear in the last 48 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely an interesting case with Damian Priest, but he's got probably his biggest challenge in this reign so far, with Gunther challenging thanks to winning the King of the Ring tournament.
And if I may be so bold, Jack, this is, I think, the best of all of his defenses.
Yeah,
I very much so enjoyed this match.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked a lot of Priest sort of stepping up, where like they even acknowledged it, like, Gunther's a hard-hitting guy and Priest is trying to match him strike for strike, basically.
Oh, and he does. And like when the match starts, Gunther's got like a bruise on his chest. I saw the discolorment. I'm not sure what it's from. I just saw it there. And Damian hits him so hard it pops open and it starts bleeding. And like it's an excellent example of when blood elevates a match. It's like a trickle down his chest, right? He like acknowledges it once, but it isn't over the top like Moxley at Bloodsport in July. It isn't gratuitous, and it wasn't like awkward that we like saw the like them gig. Like, nah, that was hard way, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
I was telling my brother, I was like, Gunther's like Nelson from The Simpsons when he goes, "Hey, you made me bleed my own blood."
Yeah. And then, we saw a couple like other spots, trying to remember, but like both men were just going really hard in this match. I always kind of like when you see that in a match where it's like you can almost kind of tell like before the match they kind of just came to agreement. We're going to, we're obviously going to protect each other and our well-being, but we're going to go out and strike as hard as we can safely.
Yeah, I think Gunther's the kind of guy that in the back goes, "You better hit me as hard as you humanly can because I'm coming at you with literally everything I've got."
Yeah.
And Damian's like, "Bet."
Yeah, and I'm always interested whenever Gunther has these type of matches to see like, who sort of steps up to that sort of like quote unquote challenge that Gunther offers, because it's like,
yeah,
you're always interested to see like who's going to try and match it, who's going to be accepting of it, who's gonna politely decline.
Would you agree that in May at the King of the Ring match that he won, Randy Orton was a guy that That isn't gonna work for me, brother.
Yeah, we'll get to Randy Orton later, especially. But yeah, that was one that felt it. But then again, maybe some people do step up to the challenge, but because of precedents set by guys like Ilya Dragunov, it seems softer in comparison.
Uh-huh.
Ilya's the one guy that whenever he faces Gunther, you're kind of looking at the two of them and you're just like, they know it's supposed to be like predetermined, right? They know they're not supposed to be going this hard.
Yeah, I forget what like legend said it. Somebody said, they asked him like, how do you make it look why did you make it look like it hurt so bad? Well, it's easy. It just make it hurt real bad.
Yeah, I'll never forget the story you told Dom once on like one of the old like podcast recordings. It might have been when we were doing them for the school. You told him about how like Mick Foley was like getting into the business and like someone told him like, oh, let me see your work punch or like your work slap, and Mick Foley's like, all right, I don't gotta hurt him, so like he does it like all softly, and the guy was like, seriously, that's your work punch? Like, well, show me, how is it supposed to be? And the guy just went like and really like hit Mick Foley. He's like, this stuff hurts, you just don't make it hurt as much.
That's straight out of his first book. Heck yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, hey, that's why I always love watching Gunther, because it's like that guy dishes out some real stuff.
My hang up of Gunther, and I was telling that to my brother, and I've told it to you, is his refusal to commit to one finisher. Yeah. And like I know you love, who knows how he's gonna beat him. He can beat him in so many different ways because he's defeated people in so many different ways. But I felt it. I'm like, I could see Damien go for the
South of Heaven.
South of Heaven, which my brother loved because he knows music. I can see him going for it. What's Gunther going for? All of it, all the time.
Yeah, the chokehold, the chop, the clothesline, the power bomb. Yeah, and then of course we gotta talk about Balor coming first off to cheer his Judgment Day member. Rallying him, trying to get him to do the best. But then we get
it's worth noting that in the back, after that blankety blank Dominic Mysterio's betrayal of Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest is like had it with him, looking for him, and roughs up Finn Balor like he's been doing. You know what I mean? Throwing his weight around. Where is he? Where is he?
Did you know?
And so this? Oh, did you know about this, right?
Yeah.
I did nothing. And he told Finn, as much as he's told him in the weeks leading up to this, right? Like, don't come out, let me do this on my own. Balor's out here again. Playing cheerleader, hitting the ring mat so that people clap for him. Yes.
Yeah, and, mentioning all the title changes that have previously happened, we saw 3 before, so you're wondering, is a 4th one going to happen? But also, we saw the first Judgment Day crack. Are we going to see another tonight, Like, that's an interesting story point.
A podcaster I listened to thought that Finn was actually going to be behind the Rhea Liv drama the whole time. Jack, did you notice that when she destroyed the clubhouse, that Finn Balor's face was not marked up?
Yeah, I saw that. Mm-hmm. And not only that, someone did a callback even to, was it last year? Was it 2022? Where, you remember back when Finn and Liv were originally fighting the Judgment Day?
I think I remember. Is that her, Balor, Liv, and AJ?
Yeah.
All share Too Sweet?
I think that was 2022.
I remember it.
Yeah, so people were calling back to that as well. But yeah, that was what was on my mind. Like, are they going to do a full Judgment Day implosion?
Well, no time for that, Jack. We have a World Heavyweight Championship match at our hands. We hit the South of Heaven. I thought it was silly for Damien to roll Gunther towards the ropes, but the commentary helped me by saying that Gunther himself is trying to roll towards the ropes, which I go, okay, I'll bite. He pins Gunther, very close to the ropes, Jack, and I was convinced Gunther was just going to put his foot on the rope. That he had that great ring awareness. He was going to break up the pin by putting his foot on the rope, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
What happens, Jack?
Instead, we, the audience, see Finn Balor grab Gunther's leg and put it on the rope, breaking up the pin.
And the audience, Jack, the people of Cleveland, give them their flowers because they react exactly how they should have reacted. They all collectively went, how could he?
Yeah. And then, I don't know if I've mentioned it. I know I forgot to mention it at the Saudi show that they did when they did that camera angle, like that full 360 of Logan Paul when he was going to do that. But for the longest time, we've seen WWE really change up their camera work. There's still some similarities to past, but they've done a lot of great stuff, like the continuous entrances from the back out to the front. Sami Zayn's entrance in Montreal where he's walking with the fans, making his way down to the ring. We've seen all these different, improvements in production. And we see another one here where, they have that big screen for a reason. They're showing the replay. And we get this shot of Damian Priest just staring up at it and getting to see live that it was Finn Balor who put the leg on the rope.
Jack, I couldn't love this more. I love this so much. It's not we have to wait till Monday. This is in real time. Damian Priest is a person that lives in the space and they're using the space and he sees the screen and the replay. And he's looking at Balor who's shooting daggers at him. And then the next thing that happens, Jack, I love even more. Now, you go from I'm excited to, again, I'm online trying to buy a shirt, Jack. When he goes for a pin that doesn't work or he gets let go, his first physical opportunity, he lunges at Finn Balor, grabs his throat from the ring. And, it's part of his undoing that he's taking his eyes off of Gunther. And he is, just irate with Balor.
Yeah, and then Gunther gets him in the hold again. And just when you think Damian's going to pass out and, that's going to be the finish, Gunther instead... Oh, no, he does pass out. Sorry, I thought he was going to hit him with the powerbomb for the win. No, he passes out. Gunther ends up winning the match. New world champion.
And just for Jack, he did it just for Jack. He wins with a stupid sleeper hold. Because he can do anything and he can do all of it, Jack. But maybe the passed out loss works in Damian's favor as it's only my body that quit, right?
Yeah.
But you think Damian's gonna come after Finn? That comes up on Monday. You know what? He went out on his sword. He's a fighting champion. His best defense of his whole reign, and I could see him go back into the title picture.
Yeah. A lot of interesting ways to go about this, especially with the Joe story.
We got to deal with that blankety blank Finn Balor. How could he? How could he, Jack?
Yeah. Just gonna have to wait and see.
And meanwhile, who's going to be Gunther's first opponent? His first defense in Berlin.
Funny enough, I was telling my dad because I had seen someone talk about online. I thought it was gonna be Sheamus,
Oh, that'd have been amazing.
Yeah, but as Gunther's giving his speech on Raw, boom, Randy Orton's music hits.
Yeah, my friend texts me right away and goes, "How are they gonna get a SmackDown guy to show up and challenge for this Raw title?" I go, "Hey man, he brought up a very valid point. Gunther didn't really pin him that day. That was a big old botch for the whole world to see."
Yeah, and
we got to run this back.
Yeah, I ended up sending Ricky this meme that I saw where it was Randy waited all these months for Gunther to become world champion so that then when he could bring up this point, it would automatically give him a world title match. And so they took a photo of Randy and edited this one meme on it where it says, "Learn to sit back and observe. Not everything needs an immediate reaction."
Wow.
So that's Randy right there.
I told my buddy, and I hope you can appreciate the callback, it would be amazing. I don't care what kind of character damage this does to Gunther, but I want Orton to beat him 1 month into his reign like Triple H did in 2004.
Oh man, that would be interesting to see what would occur from all that. You know,
Yes.
man, that would be interesting. But yeah, Randy's his first challenger, an interesting first challenger. You know, gonna be interesting to see what they do different from the first match.
Randy was pulling, like, being his most American self, calling Gunther German and saying they were going to fight in his hometown. He is from Austria.
Yeah.
I think they're different.
Randy
I
Orton-
wish Gunther called him out on that.
Yeah, Randy Orton's been watching too much of MJF's recent run.
Ah. Ah.
But moving forward to our main event of the night, we have Cody Rhodes defending his undisputed WWE Championship against Solo Sikoa.
And, Jack, we have had 4 consecutive title changes. And I'm like, anything can happen. Literally anything could happen at this point. I'm not sure which way the wind's going to blow. Cody Rhodes the night before agreed to a Bloodline Rules match because he needed to fulfill his role as the dumb baby face.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, this was the one match where I was like, let's not welcome a title change.
Really?
Yeah, just because, I don't know. I don't know how a Solo Sikoa World Championship reign would work unless he loses the belt back at the next show.
Here's a question I have for you, Jack. Not to go like too far into the match, but I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. But you're like, I don't know what a solo championship reign would look like. I want to know who asked what a solo 40-minute match would look like. This match was so long. I'm like, what part of Solo's singles career here let you think that he could do this for as long as you made him do this? And why'd you make him do this for so long?
Not only that, but it was funny that my dad, I think Marco had asked my dad and I, who we wanted to win. And Marco asked us, do you want Roman to return? Because you know how my dad and I have felt about Roman all these past years. And my dad made a good point. He's like, I want Roman to show up just so we can finally take the bloodline away from Cody and Cody can move on and do his own things. And
Wow.
I told my dad, I was like, I feel that same way because my biggest /issue with this match is it's like all the previous bloodline matches where I find it hard to be invested and care about the first, half/3/4 of the match because I know I have to wait till the very end for all the stuff to happen, all the interferences to happen, all the different run-ins, everyone making an appearance.
That's exactly what happens. And I found myself wondering what the cue was. Like, when do they come out? And I go, it has to be when Cody is the closest to winning the whole thing on his own,
Yeah.
Yeah. I wondered if Roman comes back. I felt like it was very soon. And also I thought, or do you do it on SmackDown, right? There's been a lot of returns. And I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to if it's a weekly show, if it's a go-home show, or if it's a pay-per-view.
Yeah. I was definitely interested to see, what was going to happen. And then it was funny because my dad was trying to predict as well when certain people would come out. So KO came out and was battling Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. And we were thinking, Jacob Fatu was going to come out, but I was like, wait, no. They have to beat down on Owens first for Randy to come in and even things up. And then that's
exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Those 4 men start brawling on the outside, and then Jacob Fatu comes in to save Solo Sikoa. The 2 of them are fighting, and you start thinking, is one more person going to come out, But then the spot happens where Fatu does that dive onto Cody on the announce table.
The announce table.
And he starts selling his leg. Someone saw him in a walking boot afterwards, but they say he's fine and he was just selling. So that's extreme selling if that's true, And it makes you wonder, was someone supposed to come out and then Roman? But, you get this spot where, the 2 men are beating up on Cody afterwards. Or I think Solo's going to try and go for the win. I forget how exactly it gets to this point. But that is...
I know they're both down. in the ring.
Yeah, I think like Solo's barely trying to get up, and then Roman Reigns music hits.
Music, lights, head of the table graphic. It hits exactly how it should, except Jack, it's a different song. They've gone and Def Rebelled him, or they've undone, his music. So it's like sort of like it, but it's not the exact same thing. And I wish they kept it.
Yeah, he comes and you hear Michael Cole talking about, oh, like who is he coming for? Well, Roman doesn't leave that up to question. As soon as he slides in the ring, he's running and hits a Superman punch on Solo Sikoa.
And I love the image that you have seen of like him mid punch, and Solo is like they're just at this really dynamic angle. It's a beautiful pose. He does the ooh ah, and the whole Cleveland crowd is with him, and he hits a spear, the best spear of the night. Braun Breaker, Solo Sikoa,
Yeah.
and like leaves the ring. Shades of 4 years ago, Jack. Arrive, ruin everything, and leave.
Yeah, and then to make Solo look even stronger, Cody has to get up and hit him with a crossroads for the win.
One. You love that. You gotta love that.
My dad pointed out too. He's like, please just do only one.
Just one. Did you have any doubt in your mind, Jack, what OTC stands for on Roman's new shirt?
My dad told us it was original tribal chief, but a part of me also thought it meant one true chief, like the one true chief.
Yeah, you can go with like only tribal chief, right? But it's silly. He does that, and it's funny. He does like the very cringy baby face thing of when he's standing at the ramp staring menacingly. He does like point to the three letters one at a time so that you, the audience, and also Solo has to read it. Like in case you didn't, OTC. I heard somebody posit that perhaps Jacob Fatu's leg selling was so over the top. We'll see on Friday, right, what the state of his leg is, but it might have been built up to be like borderline real to keep him out of the ring so that Roman doesn't super punch him. Like we don't want to see Roman versus Jacob until, I don't know, when it has to happen.
Probably War Games.
It's funny, my friend, he's expecting the Usos to run out. He's expecting Paul Heyman to run out. And I'm like, we got to slow burn this until November because this thing ain't going to happen until November.
Yeah, the only downside is we didn't get your booking from the last episode where you wanted him to come out like Paul Bearer.
You know what? As much as I enjoyed Saturday, I really wanted that to happen. And then you're going to do the SmackDown, all the chaos, big reveal for Jimmy?
No, for Zilla.
For Zilla. Hey, did you see Tongaloa push Cody into the corner and miss the corner?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
He has one eye, Jack. Leave him alone. But I saw it.
Oh, man.
Golly.
But that concludes the night of wrestling.
We missed one tiny match, and that was Austin Theory versus, what's his name?
Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll, who hit one of the best choke slams of the last 10 years. All due to Austin Theory's ability to jump 10 feet in the air from like a standing position. His choke slam, Jack, looked so good.
Yeah. Caps off a pretty good night of wrestling.
I agree. And, so much of what happened on SummerSlam night made you excited about the next chapter,
Yeah.
Hey, like of the 7 matches, Jack, did you realize that literally like 5 of them involved outside interference?
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
It was like a busy night of like that drama storytelling, right? But made for an exciting night. And I am all about let's go. Get Raw on Netflix. Let me watch this weekly stuff.
Yeah. Real interesting to see where they go from here. Bash of Berlin is obviously at the end of this month.
Did you see the Wyatt Six versus Chad Gable's new faction called American Made?
Yeah, I saw the highlights.
I saw this Instagram post that said, "Imagine not knowing anything about wrestling and you just tune in and go, why is this Olympic wrestling team fighting Slipknot?"
Yeah, I saw that too. Oh man, but we got a busy time for all wrestling coming up because All In, Bash at Berlin. That's not even taking into account all the other events happening. That's not taking into account that All Out is probably going to happen the week after of All In.
I feel like I heard them say that they were going to give themselves grace and not book them back to back. So it's like 2 weeks instead of one. I'm like, thanks, AEW.
Oh man, and that's not even taking into account that like New Japan has the G1 going on.
I have not seen a single match, Jack.
I will say this, sir. So on my other channel, I've been like trying to figure out what to do next because I just did like a pretty big like project, and
Yeah.
I've been working on a couple other things. But then I was like, man, I kind of want to do like another wrestling one. So I was like trying to figure out, and this one won't be ready for a while because the G1 doesn't end for a while. But I was like, the G1's happening, Takeshita's in it. I want to like really like keep up with it. Like I'm not gonna keep up with the whole G1. Let me at least keep up with the big attraction this year, which is Takeshita coming over and doing it. So like I'm in the middle of a project where I'm just watching all of them, breaking them down, and at the end I'm gonna like rate all of them like on a ranking scale, like I do with the discographies. So like, that's what I committed myself to, and I'll tell you this. He's been having a pretty great run so far. You know, he started off with Suji, then went against Cobb. I know he faced Finley, Hanare, and I think Goto was just like the most recent one. But it was funny. I saw the Suji one. I was like, man, that was a really good match. That's the start of his tournament. Like, how is he gonna get better than that? You know. And then when I was looking up the matches to find out like what the order was, like what shows they were occurring on. I was on Cage Match looking at it so I wouldn't get like the spoiler of like who won. And I saw, you know, like Cage Match also has like Dave Meltzer's ratings, and I don't really care too much about his ratings, but I saw that he had apparently rated the match against Yuya Uemura higher than all the other ones. So I was like, that's interesting. I know Yuya's like the one I know the least about. I know he did some time in TNA, and I'm even mentioning it in the script for that video that like he was often regarded as like I guess if you want to say like the worst of the young lions, you know, like people aren't as high on him as others. So I was like, well, this is gonna be my first match. I guess let's see how this is. I actually really enjoyed that one. That one was pretty good.
Instagram has spoiled Takeshita's run. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why I go to the For You page if it only hurts me. I saw him in a tiny square, Jack. I didn't even open the post, but you see him in a victorious pose with Jeff Cobb light on behind him. I'm like, I need to stop social media.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear your your take on his run, especially because I think both of us looked at the fields at the beginning of the tournament wondering who the heck do we even want to cheer for, right? Who do we really want to go and like Takeshita is a guy that you kind of slept on it, or like I slept on and went, oh yeah, no, I can definitely get behind him for sure.
Yeah, my thing was like, oh, since he's AEW, they're not going to let him do too much. They've been moving quite a lot, and I don't want to spoil that next upcoming video, especially what I have to say at the end, but I'll give a little spoiler here.
Okay.
I've been enjoying this so much, audience, Takeshita's run. A part of me wants New Japan to somehow find a way to poach him away from AEW. He just seems so much more fit for New Japan scene. And not only that, I mentioned in the video, and again, I don't want to spoil too much for the ending segment where I'm going to expand on this, but I've seen a lot of people talk about, the young lions, Tsuji, Yamura, Narita, Umino, that like, they're being expected to really elevate their game super quickly to take over that main event scene that's run pretty dry right now. So far, facing off against two of them, Takeshita's made me more interested in Tsuji and Yamura than any time before. You know, it's like he just somehow injected like new life into them when facing off against them. And a part of me is just like, how do you save that main event scene? Do whatever you can to convince this man to come over to your company. This man can literally save that main event scene. Give him an Okada type run with that world title at that point.
I cannot believe you would even fathom pulling him away from the Don Callis family. Truly the most impactful decision he ever made in his career, to join Don Callis and his family.
It pains me whenever I hear whenever I hear the commentary team mention it, because Takeshita in Japan and Takeshita in AEW is two completely different people.
Yes, I 100% get you, sir.
Yeah, so if that's my recommendation to everyone out there. If you can't keep up with the whole G1, go out and watch Takeshita's matches.
I 100% think I'm going to go through the schedule, figure out when it's going to end, but then also go back and like cherry pick. I love the New Japan app, like its ability to like zoom to certain matches. I'm going to cherry pick matches, and like in the weeks that follow, if a podcast tells me that there's one that I should have caught, I'll go back and see it.
Yeah, I think so far, the only ones that I've watched so far that I haven't watched like too much of, or like that I didn't like enjoy as much as others, was the Hanari match was kind of short, so there wasn't like too much to get invested in.
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it, but the David Finlay one kind of annoyed me.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw the David Finlay result because this wrestling website I need to stop following, because they've started being more active on social media, regardless of if you've seen the match or not. Reference like his words after the match, you know, his his hot takes. How about Gabe Kidd? There's a match on my list that I want to watch from June. Him versus Kaito Kiyomiya at Noah. I heard it was good.
Yeah, I need to check that out, especially now that I'm subscribed to Wrestle Universe because of Marigold.
Yeah.
But I still haven't seen the AJ match because they haven't put that up there.
I have not seen the AJ match either.
Yeah. And then going back to the Finlay thing real quick. You know, going back to how I was saying, like, I knew because he was an AEW guy, he probably like wasn't going to do much. But I was like,
right.
Look, I know he's going to take a loss maybe here or there, you know. But that's why the David Finlay one upset me so much, because I was like, New Japan, what is your obsession with Finlay?
Yeah. I don't know why I brought up Finlay to my brother, because he knows Finlay, the other one, the dad.
Yeah.
And I said, he has a son and he's fighting in New Japan and he's like the worst.
It was funny, on social media I saw this meme where it was like every booker has that one like mid wrestler that they're just obsessed with, and it was funny seeing like all the replies where it was like New Japan, David Finlay, AEW.
Oh, I know why I brought him up, because I was telling my brother about Bullet Club, and I was bringing up, I think, Balor's, like I told him that this thing that started, did it start with the NWO? The NWO does a thing, and the Bullet Club started doing a thing, and like, oh, you know what I brought up? This is great. I love this unlimited podcast time, Jack. You ever heard that that riddle, that philosophical riddle about a ship? If you replace one plank of wood at a time, and you did that over time so that every plank of wood that made the ship was replaced, is the thing at the end the same ship? Or is it an entirely different ship?
Yeah, I've heard that same argument with cars, especially like people who get older models and they like start to replace pieces. It's like, at one point, is that even the original car? So yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, and then so I was referencing to my brother this take on that riddle that somebody said, if a band's members have all been replaced, is it the same band? And I told him about Bullet Club that started as this group, that became this group, that in the end is the group we have today, led by Dave Finlay and his boring dyed black beard. And that leads to my brother. He's an active listener, and he also doesn't know a lot about anything I do. So he goes, who's Dave Finlay? And he goes, does that anything to do with the other Finlay? And I go, it's his son. And he's awful.
Oh man. Yeah, but that has been the thing I've been most interested in with the G1 so far. I do want to check out a couple of Shingo's matches, but like I don't know, there's some matches where it's just like, what are they gonna do differently? You know, like apparently people really like the Naito match that he opened up with, but I'm like, I've seen these two kind of fight a bit. Like, what are they gonna do differently than before?
Yeah, and Naito is being held up by like scotch tape and hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
he's literally Rollins at Mania.
woo wee, golly.
Is Naito gonna make it to Wrestle Kingdom?
You know, if I want him to, it's only so that somebody very definitively dethrones him. You know?
Yeah, gonna be interesting to see. And then All In, gonna be interesting to see how that card shapes up. You know?
It's shaping up. It's so funny because it looks like a very strong card. Like they've done a lot of work to make a lot of the matches exciting. And I forgot, Jack, that it's still a month out. What the heck are they going to do for the month of August? I'm like, heck yeah, I'm really excited about this. And I'll talk to Jack about it next week. What? August 20, what? Mariah May's already turned on Tony Storm. What are they going to do for 4 weeks?
Yeah, and then I'm wearing the shirt. Danielson, proposed to Swerve, my career versus your title, and I told my dad about it. I'm like, see, when this usually happens in wrestling, you're like, okay, well, this is obvious, like the person who's putting their career on the line is gonna win. We've seen it happen time after time. Like, very often do we not see a person's career lose in a match or the end in a match like this. But I told my dad, I'm like, if there was ever a person that was going to lose a title versus career match, it would probably be Bryan Danielson. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know what way this is going to go.
I wonder, because like Punk, MJF, there's a lot of wrestlers who are better at others at hiding their nerdness. I don't think he ends his storied career in the UK.
Yeah.
They wanted Sting to do that. And you're like, why? Because of the size of the crowd? Maybe. The biggest AEW crowd ever? Like, that's a good argument. But was Sting ever going to hang up the boots in a country he wasn't from, never spent any time in, wasn't famous or popular for, fighting in?
Yeah.
No.
And after what happened, was it last year or was it this year? Oh, it was this year. The Sting's retirement match. After that happened, I wouldn't have it any other way.
100%. Golly, he had ended in like North Carolina in a spot fest, where he went out as the beast that he started his AEW career with. I don't know who said it, but somebody was like, literally, AEW booked Sting better than anyone has, and that man worked for everybody.
Yeah, I saw someone bring up the same...
WCW, WWE, this company, for all the things it gets wrong, they got him right somehow.
Yeah, I saw someone bring up that same argument just today with Samoa Joe, where they were saying it's probably tied with Ring of Honor for who booked Joe the best, because like people are like, yeah, we remember the sort of early glory years where TNA was doing them well, but people forget those later years that really caused Joe to leave and try his luck in WWE.
We all know what happened there. Like, I don't know if you count NXT as something separate, but yeah, I agree with you 100% that Joe has looked stronger than he's ever looked since Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
I think Danielson wins, and then he says the first guy to beat me is going to put me away for good.
That could be a good one.
And then he loses in Seattle because he's a big nerd, like they all are.
Well, no, don't forget, Darby Allin won that Royal Rampage thing, so he's challenging. I think it's at the Arthur Ashe show. The Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Danielson's gonna drop it in his first defense.
No,
he's gonna pull a Kane. He's gonna drop it on the very next show. They're gonna come with Dynamite. Yeah. He's gonna open the show. Someone's gonna come out and challenge him. He's gonna agree to the match right then and there and lose in a 5-minute squash.
A special Monday Night Dynamite. What was I gonna say? No, it's got to be in Seattle. Bree and his little daughter. I don't remember his daughter's name, but we'll call her Dragina. Need to be at ringside.
Yeah.
Papa.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I would welcome that. I think that would be a good storyline. You would hope he would be willing to hold on to that title for a bit if you're doing that storyline. But knowing him, you'd probably have to like convince him each time to have a successful defense.
I mean, I know Triple H has said what he said about not wanting to do anything with AEW, but I say send Cena. Cena's like, hey, I'm also on a bit of a, farewell tour, as it were. WWE let me do literally anything I want.
No, sir. They should do your dream match. They should do Danielson versus Gunther, champion versus champion. Your favorite stipulation.
Oh, gosh. Gunther never fought Danielson, huh? Like, were they ever in the same place at the same time?
Let me look. I doubt it because I don't even think Gunther was there during like Ring of Honor's best times. Where Danielson was there.
But, like, I'm thinking WWE, too. Like, NXT UK, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he was stuck over there in UK.
I think if it would have happened, I think we would have had matching tattoos with the date of the match.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look this up.
Because champion, you're the worst.
Well, apparently it happened in 2008
Really?
at a WXW show.
Yeah! Wow!
Yeah, Bryan Danielson defeats Big Van Walter in 16 minutes and 45 seconds.
Interesting.
I might have to track this down.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one to dig up in the vault.
Yeah, that's one of those tape trading ones, except this was in 2008, so CD trading.
Cultaholic played a promo that had Colt Cabana and Big Van Walter, and he's so young and he's so cringe. It like even in audio, you're like, how funny, how far that guy's come for sure.
That wasn't even the main event of this show.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Oh, and it's funny you bring up. Oh gosh, wait, what was I gonna mention? Oh, you bring up Colt Cabana because the one thing we forgot to mention in the lead up to Drew and CM Punk fighting was that photo that Drew McIntyre posted and then promptly deleted because he's a coward.
That's with my brother's favorite actor, Luke Perry's son, Jack Perry.
Yeah, that was pretty funny to see. I was like, my goodness, why didn't he keep it up?
See you, fourth wall.
Oh man, but yeah, gonna be interesting. More than likely, we'll probably cover all in just to let the audience.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, especially because it's the big show. They go all out.
No, they go all in.
You're right. And then I just saw someone mention that like they got like I forgot how much money from like Ohio, but I think it's supposed to be because Ohio wants them to do a show there. But people were like, use that money to get as much licensed music as you can for Wembley.
That's so funny.
And then someone mentioned Danielson getting Final Countdown. You're like, I don't think you realize how much they charge. That's probably only going to cover half the cost it would to use that song.
That's very funny.
But any final thoughts, sir?
Enjoyed SummerSlam. I enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to the G1 Climax highlights, finale, and all in at the end of the month. Yeah. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Jack, we're going to start another school year.
Yeah.
The third that I've participated in? Yes.
Oh, man, yeah. And then entering that final quarter pretty much of the year as we start, winding down, and as the audience loves, our top 10 matches of the year.
I have a sizable list that, Jack, is there any match from SummerSlam that might, crack the list?
On rewatch, maybe Gunther and Priest, but
I
thinking about it, I don't know. I have to really look at my list because from just last recording, I said I don't have a clue where I'm gonna like start ranking things. But then I started really looking. I'm like, I got a pretty solid list, a pretty diverse list.
I also think my first thought was Gunther and Damien, which I'm very excited about. Like Gunther's on the list already, but like for Damien, like to have the showing that he did, I was probably most excited about that.
Yeah. So
And also Solo, give him an hour. He can do a lot with it.
oh man. And then also, is John Cena's retirement tour starting anytime soon? Because if he has any matches, that's something to look forward to.
Oh my. It'll be this big Rhea, Damien versus the Judgment Day. They need some help. Who's gonna help? R-Truth, who never quit the Judgment Day, and his best friend John Cena, maybe.
Roman Reigns needs help in War Games. Throw John Cena in there.
I'm gonna say this now, since we know that Braun Breaker beat him, took his Intercontinental title. I want him to. Somebody else said this. I want him to beat up Sammy to the point where he goes missing in action until the lights come down. The original Bloodline is short one member. Oh. Honorary comes out to even the odds.
Speaking of John Cena, things he could do, I think the Don Callis family needs a new member, or the Learning Tree needs a new member. How you mentioned, like, hey, let's have Cena go over for a match. It's like, oh, we have access to Cena for a match? Throw him in with the Learning Tree.
You're gonna give me nightmares. I'm gonna wake up in a cold sweat.
You're gonna feel a disturbance in the force.
Goodness gracious.
But with that all being said, I want to thank all the listeners who have tuned in for this full-length episode. Another full.
How long has it been? Does it tell you? Does it have a duration?
An hour and 51 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty long one. I think a bit longer than the last one, but there was a lot more to talk about. And I guess depending on... I need to look at the timing again. I guess it all depends on when Bash at Berlin happens, when All In happens. Those might overlap,
yes.
So it might be a thing where we have to cover both. Or, maybe how we do with WrestleMania. One on one day, another on the next,
Well, Bash at Berlin is going to be back to normal. It's going to be like 4 matches.
Yeah, more than likely. So it'll be interesting to see. But then AEW likes to stack their shows with like...
Oh no, it's going to be like a dozen matches plus a pre-show.
Yeah, we might have to do what we do with like the Rumble, where we're just throwing highlights out. But until then, thank you all for joining for this long episode. I've been Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
Thank you all for joining for this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.